Ooh, we got something new. Happy to see it. Alright, I'll just start out with it. The reason why last month's episode was delayed by one day, which I realize isn't a big deal, but whatever, my dorm flooded. I'll talk about that more later. Got other things to talk about. Such as how, this time, I've been keeping notes throughout the month for talking points. It only took 6 months, but I'm finally getting the hang of doing this. I'm thinking this is going to be even longer than the last episode, which was also the longest one yet, so, more work for me, yikes. Whatever. So I've mentioned before that my laptop's been doing this weird freezing thing. I'm just gonna have to get a new one soon. And at one point it froze while loading the game, which just corrupted the entire GregTech instance, which is a little bit scary, but the world was fine. I just had to reinstall it and put the new world in there. I mentioned in text that I had successfully got steel going by the end of March, and now that I can talk about it in voice, I can complain about how long it takes to smelt. My god. Does it take that long in real life, too? Because we use a lot of steel, so I have a newfound respect for that kind of thing. Oh, and also I'm constantly using steel in-game, probably because my tools are made out of it. Also, which might be a bit more evident, but I finally got to the nether, and experienced some loading issues. Funnily enough, the first time I successfully made it into the nether, it didn't spawn an exit portal for me. Which, I'm glad I chose not to bring any of my valuables with me, because I had to die in order to get back to the overworld. Another time I tried to go to the nether, my game just straight up crashed, and I had to reload it back up, and I lost 15 whole minutes of progress. Boo. And for some reason, I can't get rid of the old save file. It's weird. After a bit of trial and error, I figured out the best mitigation for getting into the nether was turning down my render distance before I went in, and also allocating just a little bit more memory. I was already allocating quite a lot, but apparently there's a huge memory spike when you travel between dimensions, so I might as well put the extra little bit in there. I realized that there's issues with the garbage collector when you start getting more than 8 gigs of memory, but, I just set it to 8. So hopefully that shouldn't be a problem. I guess I should talk about the nether. I probably should have had the foresight for this, but the ore veins in the nether work exactly the same as the overworld. I was just kind of expecting it to be vanilla for some reason. The quest book told me to get sulfur. I had a true backpack, like full chest-sized inventory backpack with me when I went to go get sulfur, so I got a ton. Put it in my storage room, which I now actually have footage of. Looking at some of the new. It's interesting to go back to the old nether and seeing the god-awful, ugly netherrack texture. I remember people were complaining about the new nether, but I don't know if I can go back to the old one, I'll be honest. Whatever, people complaining about Minecraft updates are weird. I have my own opinions about it, but another time. It basically sums up to, it's fine, larger updates come every once in a while, and it's fine. But it's still weird that they're really trying to hype up every update as if they were equal value. I don't get it. But yeah, the old nether. I knew there was going to be, custom biomes, modded stuff, but the one, large open shot I managed to get, it looks pretty cool. Pretty fitting that there was a wasp nest in there. Or was it wasps? I think it was bees, actually. In any case, I haven't explored too much of the nether, because I fear the mobs. Talking more about the overworld, though, I got, higher tier tools that can excavate, large areas at once instead of single blocks, so I can shave down the mountain faster. I had an interesting run-in with a very large tree, because the better axe can pretty much vein mine entire trees. So I went to a redwood, and they're large. They're huge. As a little bit of context before I get into this story, when you're low on hunger, you get mining fatigue and slowness and stuff like that, but the more and more starving you become, the worse the effects get. And apparently vein mining trees uses up hunger, and durability, obviously. So it only cut down, the bottom half of the tree. I lost all my hunger, all the durability on my axe. So, very suddenly I was slow, starving, about to die of starving, or take damage, I guess. And, tons of mining fatigue. And then suddenly an enemy called a drowning creeper just kind of appears next to me, probably because of all the copious amounts of shade provided by the tree. So this drowning creeper drops by next to me, and what they do is that when they explode, they encase you in a large sphere of infested cobblestone encased in water, but it doesn't replace blocks. So there was like a piece of bamboo that intersected the cobblestone that if I just broke that, I'd be able to get out. But obviously, mining fatigue and underwater. And it's not like I could just break the infested cobblestone because I read the quest book and apparently the silverfish that spawn out of it are like super powered boss silverfish. So I just had to eat a couple things of food while drowning and then cut through the bamboo with my other normal axe. So that was kind of a panic moment. I don't know how. It was kind of funny how it went so poorly, despite just chopping down a tree. GregTech is brutal. In any case, I advanced through the game a lot. I did a lot of quests. I had the proper motivation to play through the world. Motivation is weird. I've kind of already lost the motivation yet again, but it might come back, who knows. I got to the low voltage tier, which is tier 1 of technology. You know, it took me this long. I was reading up on how the electricity system worked. It quite literally is just electrical engineering, but I haven't really touched it in game yet because I'm just kind of waiting until I have more building space. Like, as I said, cutting down the mountain. I want some flat, open space to properly build with. But as I said, I was flattening a little bit, and with that, I at the very least started building myself a new house, which I don't actually have on recording. That's fine, you can wait a month. I was thinking of making it out of redwood. It seemed thematic after everything I had been through. And also, I do like the Pacific West. I went to British Columbia last year and really enjoyed my time there, and their redwoods are big, so. But redwood doesn't actually have a lot of palette to it, if that makes sense. You can't strip the logs like you can with the vanilla logs. And I realize that's because the vanilla stripped logs are from a mod that adds future content, and the redwood logs are from another mod. So basically, in the end, I just didn't use redwood, and I ended up using cherry blossom instead because apparently it's the only material I know how to build with. Similarly to how my game froze during the loading screen, it also once froze in-game, which has some strange effects. First of all, I lose everything in my baubles slot, so you know, there go my pizza gloves, and it does just load whatever the last autosave was, which was only like, in that case, a minute. Also, I finally figured out the pizza gloves. They only work when you're holding the lava bucket. It can't just be anywhere in your inventory, which I swear I knew at some point and just forgot. I feel like next month or the month after that, I'm going to forget again and complain about it. Let's see. Not that it matters, I don't have them anymore. But yeah, as I briefly mentioned earlier, I kind of lost the motivation to play on the world again. It was fleeting last time, only lasted like a week. But that's fine. The motivation will come back eventually. Motivation is weird. I have more to talk about that when discussing YouTube. Anyway, moving on. I actually do have a couple of suggestions for GregTech New Horizons. First of all, with a bit of background, I love Distant Horizons. So some sort of Distant Horizons-like mod would be really cool, especially considering the custom terrain generation. I realize that it would introduce unneeded lag to an already optimization-conscious mod pack. And also, you don't really ever need to see far in GregTech. Like, you build your factories and don't really explore much past there, I think. At least that's the vibes I've been getting. So maybe it's a good idea that it's not included by default, but at the very least I would like to know if there's some sort of mod like that for 1.7.10. Some way to have a stripped redwood log would be great, although I realize that's not specific to the mod pack, it's more specific to one of the mods, that being Natura. I actually don't even know how to pronounce that. See, I don't know how well that works as a GregTech suggestion when it's just one of the mods in the mod pack. Finding some way to not make the baubles disappear when the game freezes. I don't know how you would go about that, and also it seems very specific to the baubles mod. So, you know, once again, maybe not that applicable to the mod pack. I'm just throwing out suggestions here. Some sort of raw crafting system like they have in Factorio, where basically the player character will automatically craft the intermediate products to get to a crafting recipe. I understand that might not fit the difficulty theme of GregTech New Horizons, and it might also be a nightmare to implement. So it's just, again, just a suggestion, but I would really love if that was the thing. Oh, a way to play the music tracks from the future updates, like the Nether update or Caves and Cliffs in 1.7.10. If there's a mod that already does that, again, let me know. And also, probably doesn't seem worth the development time when you could be focusing on other things in Greg Tech New Horizons. I don't know. I think in terms of tutorials, the mod pack does like really well. I was able to understand the electricity overview, given the wiki link as well, of course. And also just a lot of the stuff, a lot of the tips and the tricks they give. I feel like I might have forgotten some of the important early ones by now, but you know, I can always reread. One thing I will say, I would really love a tutorial on the Tinker's Construct Smeltery, because it doesn't really explain enough in my opinion. I don't know. Like, I was unfamiliar with what a multi-block even was to begin with, but you know, it was pretty intuitive. I would like to say that I figured that one out pretty easily. But yeah, figuring out like the smeltery controller and what the valves are and where they're supposed to go, and realizing that like the windows and the tanks could substitute for walls, like I didn't know any of that. And I would have loved to have it as part of like the tutorial, because I didn't get much information looking it up either. Or at least not much that I could think of. Obviously enough for me to figure it out, but it's just one of the weaker points, I would say, learning the game. This might be too ambitious of a task, but if there was a way to update Greg Tech New Horizons either in-game or like through Prism Launcher, instead of having to install the new version and migrate my saves, because that always makes me nervous. I know Distant Horizons has a way of automatically updating in-game, but again, it might be too much programmer hell for that to be implemented. I say these things as if anyone on the dev team is listening to this, but who knows? I don't want to count out that possibility in case it ends up being true and I don't say anything. Oh, and pressing space to repeat the last crafting recipe, which, now that I think about it, the forestry work table kind of gets around that. So, you know what? Never mind. That one's fine. Still would like that as a feature, though. Alright, moving on to YouTube. First of all, I mentioned that I was going to try and get a video out for April, and while as of recording this voiceover, it might still be possible, it's not really looking like it. Motivation is weird, as I said. It always takes me a little bit to get back into the groove of video editing, and earlier today, actually, I did like an hour's worth of editing. Mostly messing around with some of the new settings in the new Adobe Premiere update, but hey, that just makes the rest of my workflow faster. So yeah, I could probably just like listen to Pizza Tower music on loop for the next couple of days and maybe manage to get something out before the end of the month. But as of right now, it's not quite looking like it. Also, can I just talk about like the hidden triple meaning layer stuff in the last title and thumbnail? I was making a joke about how I was using the Steam machines more, how I really got those figured out, and that I was regaining the motivation to play on the world again, at least at the time. And the gradient I used in the background is the gradient that's used for the Steam icon? Like, come on. I like to think that on very occasional circumstances, I kind of cook with the thumbnail and title. Like, specifically the title of Guiding a Noob Through a Hostile Ecosystem. I feel like I could talk at length about what information is and isn't present in that title, you know? And you know, I was expecting the April episode to be a bit disappointing back in December, because I figured exams were going to be too overbearing, I guess. I got lucky this semester, as I mentioned last episode, but I was motivated. I had some time between the end of my classes and my exam to, you know, play a little bit of the world. Studied like hell, though, before the exam. It was a bit of a scary one. Yeah, I guess I ended up just being busy in March instead of April. So, was the March episode... No, it wasn't disappointing, because I talked about it a lot. Huh. You know what? It doesn't matter. April is fun this year. I can't promise that for next year, though. So I mentioned my dorm flooded. Let's talk about that. That's fun. It was the final week of classes. Actually, no. Better. It was March 31st, the day I was supposed to get the last video uploaded. Because, you know, end of the month. It's a monthly series. And I realize I'm technically talking about a March event in the April episode, but it'll have to do. But yeah, thankfully I'd already got my schoolwork done by then, but I was kind of cleaning up on the March episode. I was already kind of late to working on it, so I was really like pushing to get it done before the end of the day. And then apparently, first time this ever happened according to the maintenance people, but a drain pipe on the opposite side of my wall had dislodged from like the drain pipe, like the upper part that connects to the gutters on the roof, dislodged from the pipe on the bottom that takes all the water away into the drainage system. Yeah, apparently that it dislodged, and it was just dumping water from the roof right next to my wall, and it just seeped into my room. Got a bunch of dirt, ruined the throwaway rug that I had in my dorm. But thankfully, at least as far as I'm aware, nothing else was that badly damaged. Yeah, the small area rug was not salvageable, and the floors just got cleaned before I moved out, so... And I mean, it was the last week. It's not like I was spending much more time in there. But, oh my god. Honestly, I have to admit, it was kind of a convenient excuse, because I don't think I would have got that episode done March 31st either way. But hey, since my dorm flooded, now I have an excuse. As if it matters, it's my own series, only I care. Like, I talk about how it doesn't matter whether or not people watch this series, but like, you know, I do care. I do want people to watch it. But that's not the priority here. I'm making this for myself, so I can look back at it in 20 years and think to myself, wow, I was an idiot when I was 20 years old. So I mentioned I only had one exam this semester. Mostly I had final projects for the rest of my classes, which in some cases can be more stressful. I don't know, they were classes, some of them were classes I enjoyed. But yeah, that was a stressful one exam that I had, because it was essay-length questions, and I wrote non-stop for the entire exam period, and I didn't match the word count for any of the questions, so I feel like the requirements for that were a bit unreasonable. I mean, I don't know, I ended up passing the class, so it's fine. I got summer classes going, so that's gonna start up like a week from now. But summer classes are like a great balance between keeping me productive and not keeping me too busy. So I might actually get more videos out than I would have expected this summer. I don't know, I don't want to say anything because I might not get the motivation back like I'm expecting to. Like, who knows? I mean, I hate leaving my channel inactive for more than like a month. So you can tell this last year has been a bit rough for me. Moving on. I went to Seattle. There was a family function thing going on, and it was very busy. We were pretty much just in and out. It gave me similar vibes to that British Columbia trip I mentioned last year, specifically Vancouver. And I just want to say, I know it was a year ago, and it doesn't make sense for the video log series to be talking about something that didn't happen this month, but I talked about the drain pipe dislodging, so I figured I could talk about this. That was a really good trip. I really liked going to Vancouver last year. I like mountains, and they've got mountains over there, let me tell you. Just really pretty, lots to do, a lot of fun. But yeah, Seattle. Got to hang out with family. It's weird talking about my life on the internet because I can't go into specifics. I think I mentioned this in another video. You know, it is what it is. I had fun. Can't say anything more, sorry. Technically I wasn't the legal drinking age in America, which made me the designated driver. It's not like I drink anyways, but, you know, I had to be. And my god. Like, I realized that driving rules and driving laws and road safety stuff isn't actually that different throughout, like, North America. Like, there's some weird ones. You can't make a right on a red in Quebec unless you're in Montreal. Like, that's a weird one. So I just didn't know if they had any weird stuff like that in Washington. If they did, I didn't know. I think the only big difference is that you could do U-turns. But yeah, I got to, I mean, I've driven on highways before, but I've never driven on an interstate. And there were a lot of factors in that drive that made it particularly stressful, but, you know, apparently I'm a good driver, so apparently I did good. Yeah, now I gotta talk about feelings. Ew. I still feel kind of aimless, but like in the present day, like I know what I want to do in life before I like die and all that. I just can't do that right now. I can't just impulse go on vacation and go see that solar eclipse in Iceland this August. It's also in Spain, but I feel like Iceland's more fun. But I can't just do that. I don't have any money. The plight of the modern man. I want to have fun, but cannot have fun. Whatever. I'll live. University sucks, but, you know, ain't that life. It's pretty much the only thing I've been talking about in the last 6 months. University sucks. Because, you know, it does. Alright, hopefully I have interesting Minecraft stuff to talk about next month. There's not really much going on in my life as far as I'm aware. And if I don't have the motivation to play Minecraft, then what is there to talk about? We'll see. The show must go on. It just might not be interesting. I shouldn't temper expectations. It's gonna be the best, most awesomest episode next time. Good luck to future me proving that.